Welcome to episode 93 of the Nero Show. In today's episode,
Canyon have released a new Aeroad, the fastest bike in the world tour. We're excited to chat through what's good and what's not.
who won the Tour de France? We're not talking about Tade, we're talking about the bikes that were on show. And Jesse breaks down the China bike, the pros and cons, what's going right and what's going wrong. All right, let's get into it. Is this the biggest release of the year? Because I think there's an argument to say this is the biggest bike release of the year.
Well, it'd be very close between that and the Trek Madone. So what are we talking about here?
We're talking about the new Canyon Aeroad.
Bigger than the Trek Madone.
It's interesting. If you have a quick look at
Easy.
Dave Arthur metrics, which I think is a decent indication of what's sort of on the pure like first look stuff, this video's double what Trek got.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's something in that.
Matthew Van Der Poel, Jasper Philipsen.
Come on, they're not in the same stratosphere. But yeah, all right, okay. So,
Who else?
no, I'm just saying Van Der Poel, like that's like saying
What's the other
Shane Warne
team?
and
You've got
Stuart
Movistar. There's no one really on Movistar that's doing anything on it. What's the other World Tour team that's on Canyon?
Canyon Shram, the women's one.
There's 3 men's teams, though, that are on it, isn't there? Isn't there another one?
No. This will either be edited out or it won't be edited out, where Jesse goes online to find out whether there's a third men's team on a Canyon. And I can tell you that there isn't. But we'll go sit here anyway and go through the motions of Jesse pretending to find whether there is a third men's team. We await the results.
I got 3 in my head. Oh, maybe that was mentioning Canyon around the women's World Tour. Okay. Geez, we're really kicking the tires today. Are we going to get in?
It's a scattergun approach today. All right, let's get into it. So,
well, Canyon released a new Aeroad. Biggest bike release of the year then. We've come to the conclusion of. What have they done? What have they updated? What have they done? Have they changed it to a climbing bike? Have they made it 50 watts faster? What are we working with?
well, the standout is no. Thank God they haven't. And that, to me, it was, okay, you've released an Aero that's still actually an aero bike. Win. Everything else is gravy from here on in. You've integrated lights. You changed the handlebars a bit. You've moved the seat post clamp. Great. Don't care. It's still an aero bike. So for that, you get top billing straight away. The specifics, though, and we had a little text chain when this was actually launched. I haven't seen you get around a launch quite like this. There were messages like, "Oh my God," and "Wow." So, what was it that was doing it for you?
I mean, not that the bar's pretty low, but not wow, because there's some amazing new feature I feel is amazing. It's just they took a good bike.
Correct.
They didn't try and sell us some crap, stupid change. They just made it better.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's go through all the updates. What are we liking? What do we think is a bit of a gimmick? And let's go through them all. So firstly, they fixed that stupid seat post wedge thing that was in the back that caused issues. They've just got a regular wedge that sits in front of the seat post now, like pretty much every other bike. Great.
Yep.
Thumbs up. There was nothing wrong with that design. So they've moved it back to the regular way. Awesome. They've put 2 bolts at the rear of the seat post where you can mount their proprietary light. This is going to be a theme across the bike as a whole as well that's going to come up, is they've done a lot of these proprietary little tweaks and stuff. I like this. It's 2 little holes. If you don't use them, you'll probably never even realize they're there. If you do, it's just an easy way to mount either a race number or a rear light that sticks on there, and you're all good. So I like that feature.
You're right. This is going to be a common theme. There is this like common nod to trying to make this professional peloton, upper echelon, fast road bike, quote unquote, livable. And there's a real move to that. And this integrated light is one of those examples. Though I will say, the devil's in the detail with this, because it's all good and well to integrate a light, but if it's a crap light, what's the friggin' point? I mean, if you're running a light and you're that way inclined, you're a day flasher. I'm a day flasher. You're a day flasher.
I am.
That's not a day flasher light. So it therefore becomes irrelevant in the scheme of things, unless suddenly there's a proprietary third party that comes along and gives you a 200 lumen rear flashing light. But just to,
it looked a bit slop.
100%.
I didn't actually see it tested at night I can't 100% say that it's a half week warm milk job. It looks it though. It doesn't look like it's going to be given off a massive flash.
Yeah, but it's not good enough for a rear light to be good at night. I
just haven't seen the real light tested.
Okay.
So we're kind of saying based off how it looks that it's not very bright.
Mhm.
We are kind of half making that up.
Yeah.
So maybe it is brighter than it looks, but you're right. Generally, the integrated ones are just not very good.
Yep.
And that would be, if that is so, it would be frustrating. Maybe it's, even in, as I said, worst case scenario, you've got 2 holes in the back of the seat post you never use and you just run around regular anyway. So I don't really, there's no part of that annoys me.
Just on the seat post thing that you mentioned, that was a gripe of the previous iteration. So my Aero was right at the end of that. So that they came up with this like solution for it, where they basically put like this rubber fixer over the seat post to stop the creak. One of the performance updates that they've really tried to do with this new one was to stiffen up the rear end of the bike. And from what I have sort of little bit that I've been told about this, that even just fixing that seat post clamp, the way that the seat post clamps into the bike, has improved that rear end. So whilst it's great to sit here and say they have actually improved the rear stiffness of the bike, a lot of that seems to have just come down to the fact that they solved the solution for the way the seat post actually clamps to the bike.
Yeah, maybe a bit of a free gimme there with moving that around. We'll get onto that. I'm not quite sure why you'd want to, unless it was very flexy in the rear end, which I find hard to believe. I don't know why you'd want less compliance at the back, but we'll get onto that. Next thing, it's still got the adjustable handlebars, which it already had. But they've got these new inserts called the Pace handlebars, where you take out the standard ones it comes with, and you buy these as an optional extra. I think they were 350 Aussie dollars. And they insert instead of the regular ones, and they come in a little narrower. So in the narrowest position, it's 35 centimeters wide, and they have a flare to them, which pulls the shift levers in a little bit. That pulls your forearms in, kind of pulls your upper arms in, makes you faster. So narrower, more aerodynamic, pull in with your forearms. And then you're thinking, oh, but with integrated cables, that's going to be an absolute headache. Well, it's not, because the cables only go internal from the part where you're then inserting the extensions into. So if you want to change these over, you just unwrap the bar tape, swap them over, and put the shifter back on.
Who's actually changing these over? I mean, this is my thing with this.
I reckon everyone that gets it.
Well, my take was it should be just the other way around. This should ship with the fast Aero bars. And if you want the standard ones, then you request those on purchase. I don't particularly see any reason why this needs to ship with these 2 editions. There's no circumstance in real life where you go, tomorrow's a pace line. I might put the Aero bars on. Sunday, though, we're climbing, so I'm going to revert back. No one's doing that. So, again, this is a great nod to livability when it comes to these bikes. I just think this is almost over-engineering.
I agree. It should come with the Pace Aero ones as standard. But compare that to a specialized SL8 where you have to buy a whole new set of handlebars, and the narrowest you can get, I'm pretty sure, is a 38. The bar is so low, so they've won it anyway. Yeah, but I'm with you.
I'm picking 100%. Nits where I shouldn't be because of the comparisons. That's fair enough.
I mean, you're right. It's an Aero race bike ridden by a World Tour team. It should just come with the fastest setup. And if you don't like them being 35, you undo the bolt and move them out of it.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer. On those integrated handlebars, Sam, they've moved over their proprietary head unit mounting thing from the gravel bike. So it kind of inserts into the front of the handlebars, and into where you can put your head unit. You can also just swap that over, and you can put your phone mount in there. There's also another insert you can put in there if you want to run Aero bars, Aero with the elbow pads and the extensions. So at work, again, and with a lot of these proprietary things, at worst, it just acts as a normal head unit mount. You never realize you have it. But you might think, who the hell's running Aero bars on a Canyon Aeroad? Doesn't happen. Well, it does, because juniors, for example, I coach juniors. They're allowed Aero extensions on their bikes, and they all run clip-on Aero bars. And so if you're a junior, having this option is nice. And also people that do a bit of triathlons, the kind of corporate, what did we call them? Not the mummels, the millennial man in Lycra that does some triathlons. Clip on your Aero bars, ultra cyclists as well. I think they mentioned that was one of their on Canyon's website. Geez, I'm reading their marketing materials. Ultra cyclists, sort of the ultra gravel. Well, it's not a gravel bike. The ultra sort of people like to use the clip-ons. You know, the vegan cyclists of the world. If he's not running his time trial bike,
for his ultras, yeah,
it's there
100%.
anyway. So just it's people might go, oh, who the hell's running aero bars? There are people that do, and again, if you don't like it, don't use it. It's all good.
The gear guide, wasn't it? Something like that. The gear.
It had
some sort of name.
Yeah, I think it was gear something. Yeah.
Again, not being that guy, but just this is another one that sounds great. It just has to be delivered nicely, and by that I mean the Canyon mount that came on we've said this many times.
I remember the first ride.
That came on that Canyon Aeroad was horrendous. What it did is it basically tilted the bike computer far too much towards you. So basically it looked like you had like a plasma screen sort of pointed back towards you, which just looked terrible. And this was the actual mount that came with the bike. So obviously you can go and find proprietary ones afterwards that worked really well, really seamlessly. So my only thing with this is, again, this is a fantastic idea in concept, but as long as they deliver a really neat, clean angle that matches the angle of the top of the bars, then
100%.
we're on.
I mean, your one was laughable.
Yeah.
You have this nice flat aero bar, and then there's this head unit just catching all the wind.
Yep.
Yeah, looks horrible. So, yep, you're right. You're dead right. Hopefully they do it well. Next one. All the bolts, or pretty much all the bolts, are T25, and they give you a T25 tool hidden in the front through axle. So seat post slips, saddle slips, whatever it is, you've got a tool with you at all times.
No, right.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, this bike has that. So most of the Cervelos come with that bolt sort of hidden into the through axle mount, which also will work for the seat posts. But yeah, to have every single bolt, and my bit of experience with the Aeroad is like you do have to rethink the way that you do stuff on the bike, like the way the headset works and the way the handlebars work. It's a different way of thinking. It all works. It's like an IKEA build. It really is like an IKEA setup. And so absolutely, totally on board with this. You did say almost every bolt, because I did notice one of the reviews said, oh, hang on, the bottle cage mounts are actually 4mm normal Allen keys. Not the other one. So
they almost got there.
Almost got there.
Execution, Canyon. I don't really. People were raving about how good T25 is. I hate T25. I much prefer a standard Allen. The amount of those star ones I've threaded out. Maybe I got shitty Torx tools. I much prefer. Give me a hexagon any day of the week.
Completely agree with you.
So
I totally hate them.
There's got to be a bunch of mechanics in the comments, like, because we're technically wrong, apparently, but no, much prefer a regular one. Let me keep the positives flowing because I got some nitpicks. Next thing, 32mm tire clearance. That's standard. Any lower, like I'm pretty sure that when they used to do BMC Team Machine R, it was up to 30. That's not good enough. 32 means it can fit probably a 33 and a half, no problems. So 32 is box tick.
MVDP's bike that I saw, his Paris-Roubaix bike that was at Eurobike, which had 30mm Vittorias on it, and they had a little measurement thing on there, and they were blowing up to just under 32 on the bike, and I can tell you there was still plenty of room. So I reckon they're underselling a little bit what they can probably fit on there.
Yep. So that's box ticked. Rubber stoppers under the fork legs, so you take your front wheel out, you just have somewhere nice to lean your bike.
This is genius. I rate that so much. Yeah. Thank you.
And this is what I mean. I'm sitting there watching, I think it was Dave Arthur's video, and they're going through. I'm like, yeah. And then I message Rick, like, fuck it, they haven't fucked up yet. This is good stuff. Okay, so features of the actual frame, the fork and the head tube are a little bit narrower and a little bit longer. So, I mean, it already tested fast aerodynamically. It was already one of the best, if not the best bike in the world tour. So now it's a few watts faster. So I wouldn't be surprised if with the 35mm wide pace bars slammed in as narrow as they can go, it's getting close to that 200 watts in the Tour magazine testing, given that I'm pretty sure it was already at 202, 203. So a little bit faster. The weight is pretty good. So Ben Delaney, thankfully, gets his hands on these bikes and he weighs them and tells us the weight, no pedals. So the weight of the CFR, which is their top model with the new SRAM Red, and Zip 454 NSWs in, I think he rides a 56, was 7.10 kilograms. And his Madone, same spec, slightly shallower wheels, the RSL 51s, it was 7.03. So it's within 100 grams of the Trek Madone, which is not an out-and-out aero bike. And this aero would be significantly faster aerodynamically. That's impressive.
So my Aeroad with Shimano Dura-Ace with the DT Swiss wheels, the ARC 50s, I think they were. Less tyres. I only had 25 mil tyres on there. That was about 7.3.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's interesting. It's not a dramatic weight save, but those Zips aren't super light wheels. I reckon you could do a 7.8 build on a 6.8 build on this without too many. I mean, with your wheels, with some CRWs, with a top end group set, I reckon you're there.
Yep. I reckon that's really.
I mean,
it's about what you want.
This is. Should I say this? Just is what the Madone should have been. It just should be the. I mean, you put this Aeroad against the old Aeroad, and you look at it, profile shot of it, you go, can't really tell the difference. Oh, 300 grams lighter. Cool. Like that's kind of what the Madone should have been.
Just clarify. I'm pretty sure that the frame is like plus or minus 50 grams frame set from the previous one. So I think because that group set's lighter.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a lot from that. But I mean, yeah, like it's just as fast. It's a little bit faster, about the same weight, which is already competitive, and just a bunch of practical improvements. Mm-hmm. And the handlebars are faster, and no issue with the seat post that you can gripe at. I mean, that's bloody awesome. I'm stoked with it. Now, a couple of gripes. The pros are riding a pro-only proprietary handlebar that doesn't have that gear mount head unit thing and has a lower stack height so they can get a little lower. That annoys me. I mean, if that's a little bit lighter, maybe it's a bit stiffer and then it lowers the stack height, why can't they make that for sale? Canyon's a massive company. If the pros are riding something, let us get access to it. I don't like that pro-only thing. Even if it's like really expensive because you're not producing that many of them, I could live with that as long as it's for sale. They're making them. Just hold some in stock would be good to see. And I think it should come with aero bottles, like the Trek Madone, like the Cannondale Super 6. Especially the way they do that down tube. It's super thin. It's not designed to have bottles on it. It's not like the Pinarello Dogma where it flares out. So I think with aero, it would be faster with aero bottles. It will save a few watts. And with the modern aero cages, like the ones on the Cannondale and the Trek, that still take a round bottle, it's kind of a no-brainer because it comes stock with the aero cages and the bottles. If people don't want to use aero bottles, just put your regular bottles on. You wouldn't even know.
I find it's interesting that Jumbo, a Visma Lisa bike, haven't put aero bottles on the S5s because it's the same. It's got that really narrow down tube, and I would have thought would benefit dramatically from an aero bottle. So I don't know whether there's something in that aerodynamically that shaping doesn't necessarily get as much advantage from an aero bottle. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I hear you on that. That's all right. They can save that for the next launch.
Save it for the next one. To be fair, Trek you can buy the Trek Madone aero bottles retail on their website if you want to run them anyway. So it is a replaceable part. So if you want to go a little faster, I would recommend buying the Trek aero bottles.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's cool.
No, it's pretty lame.
Around with your Trek aero bottles on your Canyon Aeroad. Yeah.
Well, they're faster.
Yeah, true.
Why not?
You put a note in there saying if you were a Canyon rider, you're probably coming away from this launch going happy about this.
I think you're stoked. Yeah. You've got the Canyon Aeroad, which you're probably going to run on most stages, given that it's close to 7. And then, for some Oars Cat mountain stage where you want to have 6.8, you just run the Ultimate. That's a very compelling setup. I'd be pretty happy on a Canyon team. Just coming back to the thing you said about the hardening up of the rear end, which is, they said in one of the videos, Vanderpool asked for the rear end to have more feedback. I'm going, what? Like we've tried to get less feedback. So I still don't understand what's going on with that rear end. So, but have you got any clues as to what they mean when they want it? I can understand they want it to be more pedaling stiff, but you want the compliance in it.
I wonder whether this is one where the Canyon engineers just nod at Vanderpool and say, yeah, that's a great idea, Matthew. But because everyone's like you who wants to bash 700 watts over cobbles for 11 minutes and wants full feedback. Yeah, 100%, Matthew. We will take that on board and then go, we're not doing that. Can you imagine Dave Arthur on the Cotswolds riding around on this thing, getting his ass banged around the place by this bike? No, thank you. I don't know if that's something you would want to make necessarily a big deal out of, that the rear end of the bike is suddenly going to offer less compliance. But yeah, that's just tell Matthew that it has and be done with it potentially.
Yep.
So I will say, like we've talked a bit about this with the Madone, and they're testing it at like 200 watts or whatever it was, and people whinging about that. But with this bike, which gets promoted as Vanderpool's bike, as a Tour de France classic stage winning bike, this is how you do it. We haven't seen directly the press data of it, but you saw some of it in the videos that came up online, that all their wind tunnel testing that were made available to the reviewers were all things that were around the 40 kilometers an hour. Okay. The kind of numbers that these guys are riding that matters to them.
So I can't find their white paper thing. All I can see is the features listed on their website. And then in regards to the Aero drops, it says you can save up to 14 watts. But it's not like asterisks link to how we came up to that. So I don't know how they've come to that number. But again, like, there's nothing that annoys me about it because it already was objectively fast from Tour Magazine, and the tweaks they've made make sense that it would be slightly faster. And like saving 14 watts, like the bike's not going to be 14 watts faster, but you can understand. You get those things 35s, bring your elbows in. Yeah, sure. You probably would save 10 watts. So I don't know if you have anything. I just didn't do a deep dive on the pricing. We know where Canyon sits. It's like they're always $1,000 or $2,000 under most of the other brands. This seems to be about the same. I don't have some big detailed comparison price thing. They're always a bit cheaper.
Canyon's position in the market hasn't really changed. Yeah, you could argue that it's gone up a couple of percent maybe, but it's seemingly in line with their previous product range. So there's no groundbreaking news when it comes to that. There's also no groundbreaking change in the sizing. They haven't reduced SKUs as the phraseology goes these days. So it's pretty much, it's quite funny in terms of, you go onto the website, it's like as you were, really. It's just like new Aero Di2, it's just with a little new banner underneath it. Apart from that, you just go and buy, and next minute your Canyon Aeroad CFR turns up. I want to ask you a question on this, and I think this would be this is like something I want to follow up on when we do these bike reviews, especially these like full froth speculation, spec read bike launches. Okay, this launch, this Canyon Aeroad launch, where is this for you on the I'd love to ride it sort of phase? 10 being give me Canyon's email now. I'm reaching out, Jesse Coyle, throw the weight around, want to get on this rig and test it. Like, you want to test it. You want to really know what this is about. 1 being move on, next topic, not even interested in continuing this conversation any further. Where does the Canyon Aeroad 2024 sit with you? Because I have a different way of thinking. It'd be more if I was going to buy a new bike, okay, where would it sit? Not because, it's a probably great bike. Would I be desperate to just fluff around on it? The reason I asked that is like,
right.
None of us. I'm not buying a new bike.
Yes,
like,
but that's why it's better to. No, but that's why it's better. If I had no bike,
okay, and
I need a new bike. This is a 10 out of 10. This is the top of the list. Yep. There's what competes with this. And the version you had wasn't the case because I hated that the bars didn't get narrow enough and you couldn't, it's proprietary. You couldn't run your own bars. It was crap. Now they fixed it. If I would 100%, if I needed it, if I was going to buy a new bike, it would probably be this. It just is, they've just smacked it. Where does it sit for you? I mean, for example, like to give you an idea, like the Trek Madone, like it was like a climbing looking bike that was kind of heavy. It was just, it was out of 10, it'd be maybe like I was just almost like basically nothing, and no interest, just did nothing for me. Even though I like Trek as a brand, the branding was, I liked Trek. That actual new Badone, no. So that's kind of that scale. I still have a thing for that new BMC, the Team Machine. That's probably still a 10 too, except if I was seriously looking at buying a new bike, I could probably get 2 Canyon Aeroads for one of them. What do you?
Yeah,
what do you
it's
think?
pretty high. I mean, so the chat for me is I have to remove myself from being someone who's had a Canyon Aeroad, and so therefore it's not. I mean, I was going to say for me it's like a 3 because there's not really anything here that if I put myself in a world of someone who still has that bike, I don't see this and go get the other one on bike market. I have to have this. It's certainly not. It's not doing that sort of thing for me. If it was a situation of coming to a new bike, having been previous Jesse Coyle coming from Rimbrake, I totally agree. 10 out of 10. That Alpecin de Koenig replica color, oh yes, definitely.
The blue
greeny
sparkly
oil
thing.
slick
Yeah.
thing, 100%. Get me on that ASAP. But speaking personally, like I've made it pretty clear. Actions speak louder than words, don't they? I've effectively chosen the S5 over the Aeroad. Made that pretty clear for a couple of reasons that I've spoken about here on the channel. But I will say that this release, this 2024 Aeroad release, is probably the most compelling argument to compete with the S5. And that is an awesome thing. Having seen what Trek did, this is fantastic. I want more bikes in this space. But if you just boil this down to, this new release versus the current S5, I think it's a really compelling argument. And it will be super interesting to see what Cervelo do to compete with this. Hopefully they do try and compete with this.
I do think it still suffers from a looks issue. I just don't think it looks that. I mean, the color's good. The silhouette of the frame. I mean, it's a problem because it's fast and it's quite light and it's great, but it just I don't frothing it. It's very kind of functional. Or I can't go past
There's
it.
the German stereotype. You just
I cannot
had to say
go
it,
past.
didn't you?
Oh, that wasn't on purpose. I mean, I can't go past it because that's just my brain's just like, yeah, that's the package. But I'm not looking at this going, I'm not scrolling on my phone at midnight just looking at photos of it. It's just not that.
I can remember the first time I got to ride a lot with someone who owned a Canyon, Pete Ritzky's. And I remember when his Canyon Ultimate, I think, was obviously still Rimbrake in the day, turned up and we all kind of got around the new bike. And it was the classic, because Canyon have always been pretty boring with their paint jobs. It was that black stealthy Canyon thing. We were at the coffee shop and we were looking at it. And we're all, giving him positive feedback because it was, it was light, stiff, fast, and enormous because he was 8'2". But I think all of us kind of came away from that first new bike experiencing, looking at the Canyon going, and I do think they suffer a bit from that. And it's different to like a Giant where people will go, oh, it's just a Giant because of the value side of it. I think you're right. The aesthetic of a Canyon just isn't that wow factory thing. In fact, I would potentially argue a Propel is actually more aesthetically pleasing than a Canyon Aeroad, which I think is saying something personally. I do like, maybe we'll talk a bit about the Tour in a bit, but, Vanderpoel does wonders for this bike to make it look sexier than it really is.
Yes. Yeah.
That's it for me. It's funny. Yeah. 10 out of 10, but 3 out of 10 when it comes to me being excited about riding it.
Well, given that you have ridden the previous version and now you're seeing this update here, is there anything else that you kind of think you would have liked to have seen, or if it's something that's maybe could have been refined into the layup, like some sort of ride quality improvement What would make you
I think I'm right in saying that the top tube is now straighter than the old one. I feel like
straighter?
yeah, like see if we can pull up a picture of the older one. But this is now purely horizontal. It doesn't seem to slope down at all like the other one did. That was
It's a larger profile
larger
top
profile
tube.
top tube. Yeah, that would have been my only
Boosts
thing.
stiffness and agility for better
Yeah,
handling.
I did kind of think when you sort of looked down that it looked a little minuscule, the top tube. So the fact that they've beefed that up, definitely. I've said on the record that I didn't really like the handlebars of the previous iteration, and so that clearly is something that's going to be improved.
Yeah.
No, I mean, as I've said, I really, really like the original bike, and they've made some fantastic improvements to it. So I wish I could offer more insight other than that.
No, that's
But yeah, it's a bike that I've recommended to a lot of people. And interestingly enough, anytime I've recommended it to someone, they have not gone through and got one. Maybe that comes back to the Canyon being Canyon thing that people struggle with. I don't know. But yeah, it's an easy bike to recommend, but seemingly putting your money where your mouth is a little bit more difficult. I think there's still a little bit of that, got to take this to a bike shop. What will the bike shop think? You do get looks. I've been in bike shops this is not cash. Can I just point that out? Because people will think that is.
okay.
But I have been in a bike shop where a customer's brought in a Canyon and service, blah, 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 this is creaking, et cetera, et cetera. The customer's left and chatting back to the bike shop people, and they're like, well, we'll put the Canyon at the back of the list. Because it does. It has a reputation of being an industry killer.
Okay. There's another just problem with the reality of that is if you are looking, someone's asked you, Chris, what do you think about this bike? You go, you should look at the Aero. So they look at it online, then they go into the local shop and they're looking at an S5 and maybe it's $2,000 more, but it's there and you can touch it. And then you're probably going to just pay that extra because it's right there and you can see it versus this thing you're going to have to then order online. Like they're always going to be a bit behind in that regard.
I've whinged about this for a long time. And I think this is specifically a Canyon Australia thing. They do not do a good enough job of engaging local influencers because that is what it needs. It needs people in bunches that are promoting their brand because they're not in a bike shop. So they have to be somewhere. And that somewhere, therefore, has to be at least out on the road spruiking the goods of their bikes. It's not good enough to just rely on a bloke in white shorts winning a couple of classics. It needs more hands-on. So, yeah.
Yeah, right, especially right at that last stage of I'm handing my cash over. Well, I'm probably going to hand it over to the one I've seen in real life.
100%.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And that changes from country to country. I'm sure in Germany, it's completely the opposite and Giant's irrelevant. Whereas that's just the case of where we are here.
Yeah. Besides your one, there's very few times that I've been around one and I'm kind of, just inadvertently at a race or something and I have time to just pick it up and, have a feel. It's just not that common.
Yep. All right, Canyon Aeroad launched. Let us know your thoughts down below. Is it the biggest launch of the year and was it a hit? All right, quick word from today's show partner, Bike Exchange. Are you looking for a new bike? Bike Exchange has an incredible range to suit every rider, whether you are looking for the fastest aero bike like Jesse Coyle, an endurance bike, a lightweight climbing bike like me, or something for off-road like gravel or a mountain bike. Bike Exchange has plenty of options. Now, JC, you have been on the website sniffing about. What can you see on there?
Again, they've got the Nero Show specific landing page where they've curated some of the best deals because, we love a good value snatch up. One stands out to me here. So it's a 2022 model Cannondale Synapse Carbon 1 RLE. That's the top spec one with Shimano Dura-Ace Di2 12-speed. So even though it's a 2-year-old model, it still comes with 12-speed. It's 34% off. So for a Dura-Ace Di2 build, endurance bike, $5,999 US. So big saving there for a model that's only a couple of years old.
So just quickly, Bike Exchange, how it works is the bike shops list their bikes on the website where customers can go and buy them. So essentially you're buying a bike from a bike shop. It's just that it's listed on Bike Exchange. So as Jesse mentioned, we have our own landing page, and that is bikeexchange.com/Nero, where we do have a curated bunch of bikes on there. If you're in the US, go and check out that particular site.
I'm on the page for that Canyon Synapse Carbon bike, and there's a button here that says book a test ride, and you click through and it says arrange test ride. You put in your details. So that sends a request to a local partner or dealer that stocks that bike, and then potentially you're able to test ride it. I wonder if that works. I wonder if that works for every bike. That's the thing we say. Is
I see where
how do you compare stuff? Well, you really need a test ride, but test ride is quite hard. I wonder if that feature works. I mean, it's in there. How many of the bikes can you actually test ride?
All right. Yeah. So again, that's bikeexchange.com/Nero. Check out that website. And thank you for Bike Exchange supporting today's episode. Tour de France run and won.
Done.
Some bloke won.
Yep.
What do I want to talk about? Tour de France. Not that. He was very, very fast. I want to ask you a question to start with.
Yes.
Which bike brands won and which bike brands lost the tour? Did anyone gain for you? Did anyone lose for you?
Yep.
You know, because we came in and we said there were a few brands that had a bit on the line here. Anything stand out for you?
Maybe a bit out of left field, but I do think Biniam Gamai, smaller budget team, winning multiple stages, getting the green jersey, plenty of TV time from that, a custom painted cube to go with the green jersey. I think for the money they'd probably be putting in, big win for Cube. Like I saw quite a lot of that bike.
Did you see more Cube or more Dare? Because I see them on the similar level. That's probably not fair on Cube, to be fair. But you see where my head's at here?
Okay. Results-wise, I saw a lot more of the Cube. But you saw Dare because freaking Barbara Hansen's just being a maniac and just getting all the TV time. I got jersey. But you weren't looking at... Actually, no, you probably would because he's off the front on his own. You're going, geez, that bike must be fast. How's he on his own all the time? So, actually, no, I take that back.
So I would argue that Biniam was obviously athletically the win. That the teams, there's no comparison there. 100%. Wanty absolutely killed it. But from an equipment perspective, Dare won that. Dare won that battle. No two ways about it. Johannesson later on in the tour, Abrahamson just getting caught in breakaways and then doing lead-outs. What's going on here?
Yeah.
And they're going, Jesus, look at that thing. Yeah. So for me, that was a no-brainer. But yeah, you're right about Biniam. I will say Shimano's back. Not that it ever left.
What do you mean Shimano's back? What is that? What?
They won every stage except one. That'll be a thing. That will be a thing. I think they won. They won that battle.
I don't think people are drawing conclusions between group set on a bike and who's won the stage. I don't. You don't really see much of the group set. It's just kind of, I guess he's on Shimano maybe.
Shimano have always got a lot to lose when it comes to the tour because that's their hunting ground. They have to, they've made it very, very clear that we don't give a fuck about marketing. We don't give a shit about influencers. We don't care about what you talk about. Our group sets will win bike races. And so, if they're going to double down on that, you have to at least give them kudos for when they do. You're right. It doesn't actually move the needle in terms of probably sales, but I don't
Well, you can
mind
give them kudos. It's just like winners and losers of the tour. I'm not sitting here thinking, oh, group set. I mean, I thought it when SRAM won all 3 Grand Tours last year because it was like this big underdog story and everyone thought it was not going to hold up. But no, okay. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I just group set.
Any other bike brand take a win for you?
Not a win, and you've maybe want to reference another video that we've put that we wanted to talk about, but Colnago just snaking another Tour de France win with one mediocre at best do-it-all road bike is just kind of overperformance, but like frustratingly, it's not that good of a bike, and it's won another Tour de France. It's just more annoying more than anything because it's like they're purely getting froth of the bike because it's winning, but it's actually not that good. And their suite of bikes, besides the time trial setup, is just not that good. And so I think Colnago, you just throw enough money at a problem, except for coming up with another model of bike and you can just get away with it. And so I guess hats off Colnago.
I'm a bit
'cause
like
they've done it again.
your group set chat in the sense that I don't think anything that Tadej does, I don't think it's relevant to anyone. I don't think anyone now links that to the bike anymore. I don't know whether the audience is just matured enough to that particular brand, or Colnago is just, it is where it is, and doesn't matter how many climbing records he's going to set up climbs, that it's not going to really do it for us. I think I wrote in the thing, like, sorry, I just don't care. Like, yeah, you demolished everyone, but your bike didn't really move the needle for me. And that's unlike me. Like, I would normally see something like this and go, whoa.
No, well, hold on, because you put another video in this link, which was a road CC video saying, could Pogacar win the Tour de France on a cheaper bike?
Yes.
Mid-range bike versus superbike.
Well, I mean, that was, to me, that particular video was up there with clickbait of the year.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Is that not an interesting discussion? You know, you've got a guy up there winning on a $25,000 Australian dollar, you know, sort of a half-baked race bike and winning.
It's a great question.
And then there's people kind of going...
It's a great question. Did you watch the video?
Yeah, they were comparing a Van Rysel and a Canyon.
That's what I mean. That's why it's clickbait, because it's a fantastic question that you have to click on. It's like literally the best question I've ever seen asked. Just like, oh my God, could he? Yeah, I want to know. I want to know right now.
Yep.
I'm sorry, what? This just is an excuse for a top-end road bike versus mid-range road bike up a 1.8 kilometer climb in fucking the Cotswolds. Like, how have you titled that video? That, to me, that got me so angry. I think it's Road CC, was it?
Road CC.
You can do better than that. I know what you've done here. You've gone, Google SEO search for July 2024. We just have to include the words Tour de France and Pogacar in absolutely everything we upload, and it doesn't matter what the content is. I'm calling that one out as the biggest joke I've seen this month.
It didn't work. The video is 4 days ago. It's only on 13,000 views. So
well done, everyone.
Big fail.
Well done. You all spotted that was clickbait.
The video legitimately had nothing to do with Pogacar or Colnago or anything.
The first sentence of the video, he basically says, "We don't know." Like, if you're going to play the clickbait card, at least, you know, give it 30 seconds so YouTube can bloody give it a view.
Well, can we the question then? Can we discuss that?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Can we take that in? So firstly, I got two versions of this question.
Does that mean we can title this video today and then we can get the clicks?
Possibly. So firstly, could Pogacar win on? Let's decide what's the slowest bike ridden in the Tour de France this year, and could Pogacar win on that, or any other mid-range bike? And then also, could Pogacar go faster on another team's bike or setup? Do we want to get into it?
Okay, well, I would argue that Kofidis' bike's the slowest.
That is the
tyres.
Look with like 25 mil
tubs on it.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think the question's kind of mute because I think he would win on everything.
It's a pretty easy question.
Yeah. I mean, he's a shot on the Aspero.
You know,
at this point. Well, I mean, that's the question. Like, you know, a giant Defy. Does he win on a giant Defy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not, I mean, the amount of drag you'd have to add for him to not win. I mean, it'd be a lot more tired dragging around a
Standard?
9 kilo bike.
Does he win on a standard? How good the influencers would lose their shit if he won the Tour on a standard. Oh my God.
Would Pogacar win the Tour on a standard? Yeah. I reckon he 100% would. Yep. Probably wouldn't. Actually, yeah. Yep.
Titanium? Black Heart, titanium out of...
Yep.
Yeah?
If it's a road bike...
If it's a road bike,
if it's a road bike, he's going to win. Would he win on Vittoria Rubino's? Because, like, with 25 mil commuting tyres, he's probably struggling.
Is his whole team on it, or is it just him?
No, just him.
Okay, then he wins on everything.
Oh, you mean...
Because that's I think, potentially where you could have isolated him earlier on in stages with poor old Yates being on
if he's chasing in a valley on a Defy.
A Defy.
You maybe...
Yeah.
having issues
Yeah.
with like 24 mil climbing wheels, potentially. But let's get on. Okay, more interesting question then. What bike would he go faster on? Can we say the thing about the NV why they're riding NV wheels and tires? Is statute of limitations on that? So a few years ago, was this like 2021, 2022? They didn't have like besides Colnago. Now the thing with Colnago is Colnago's owned by a UAE investment firm, so that's a whole that he's riding Colnago. That's just what it is. All the other components is all fair game, and so they did a whole massive test of basically every wheel and tire combination a few years ago to figure out what are we putting Pogacar on, and that's why they're riding the NV SES 4.5s and Continental tires. Originally, he was on the 28 mil GP 5000 TT tires. Just this year, he's on the same wheels, but he switched to 30 mil wide in the regular GP 5000. So obviously, they've done some testing that showed going from the TT to the regular version is worth it because you can run them at 30 mil width. And so I do think that they've tested all the combinations. So based on their testing, that wheel and tire combination is the best in the tour. So I'm going to say if I was building him a concept bike, I would keep those same wheels and tires. And then MV, they have their prototype integrated bars that he's on. That'd be really nice. You've ridden the MV handlebars and stem. You reckon they're really
very,
comfy?
very, very stiff. I wouldn't say they're comfy.
But the position kind of gets
lovely.
you. The position's really, really nice. Okay, so that's probably the setup I put him on. The Colnago, let me bring up the Tour Magazine's testing. Now, the frame it's kind of a do-it-all frame. It's just slow. And so he would be faster on a different do-it-all frame. Now, say the way Pogacar rides, he would do fine on a do-it-all bike. I don't think he needs the choice of climbing versus aero. I think someone like Jonas Abrahamson wants that choice. For Pogacar, I do think a do-it-all bike would be good, but he needs a more aero-focused one. I mean, Tour Magazine's testing, that V4 RS is 221 watts. Now, that's at 45k an hour in a wind tunnel, so we can read into this as we want, but something like an SL8 is 208, I think, 207. So let's give benefit of the doubt. Take it out of the wind tunnel. You're in a peloton. You're going off the front. You got winds coming. You're changing direction. Okay, maybe instead of a 14 watts difference, which it is in the Tour Magazine's testing, maybe it's 8 watts difference. I mean, he spends a lot of time in the wind. I mean, that adds up over a climb. He's doing these climbs at most of the time 25 to 27k an hour if the gradient's not super steep. So he would be faster on a more aero-tuned do-it-all bike. And I'm pretty sure the SL8's lighter too. So, yeah, get him on an SL8 with the MV wheels, 30 mil wide GP 5000s. I mean, he's going to be going even faster.
I disagree, but it's almost as though I want to double down further on what you were saying to disagree. So I noticed, so I was obviously paying a lot of attention to a couple of things. The Jonas, will he, won't he run the S5? Will he, won't he have the one by on? And also with Simon Yates, will he, won't he run the Propel? Same with the TCR. Like what's going on here? Okay. And what played out with Yates was interesting. So when he was in the GC battle, in those first few mountain stages, he was running the TCR because his mindset was, I'm in the GC group. I at no point am really going to be trying to hit the wind here. My entire game plan is to follow wheels up the hill, and I'm going to rely on my team to give me the support and the drafting in the situations when I'm down in the flats. So I just need to put my watts out on the lightest possible rig I can possibly do, and that's the TCR. Drops out of GC and subsequently moves to a stage hunter. And from that moment on, he runs the Propel. And he runs the Propel basically because he is not going to be sitting in as much. He's going to have to make the difference in smaller groups. And then, okay, there still will be selection points on hills, but he's taking into account that he's probably going to have to ride at 45 kilometers an hour for a longer period of time. Therefore, he'll jump onto the Propel. So he's using an aero bike.
Can I cut you off? You'd have a point if the faster bikes aerodynamically couldn't get to 6.8. But an SL8, he's going to be, they'd be able to build at with those carbon tie components he's already using at 6.8. So he can have the bike at the exact same weight as his V4 RS. It's just faster. And so, yeah, like I agree. He's probably not going to want to run a Canyon Aeroad and be 400 grams heavier. But that's not what there's other do-it-all bikes that are aerodynamically faster and not any heavier. And so if I'm going through this list, like the SL8's definitely faster. And actually, is he probably even, I'm pretty sure it's even lighter. That V4 RS is.
Yes. Oh, it is.
Light, but it's not.
Yeah.
World beater.
A little part of me would love to see him on an S5. I'd love to see him on an S5. Like, yeah. With his full carbon tie setup.
Yeah. Still not going to be 6.8.
No, but it wouldn't be too far away. And I'm sorry, I'll just come back again to this thing of him climbing at 30 kilometers an hour. It's the feedback seems to all be that 18 kilometers an hour is the cutoff. That's when they cut off between aero advantage and disadvantage. And look at his climbing speed. It's very rarely below 20. And so therefore I think Aero probably wins.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you could deck out his light. Yeah. I mean, look, not to just keep bashing Colnago, but it's not that hard to find a faster setup. Like going through these bikes, even a Propel advanced SL0 with the integrated seat post. I'm pretty sure they're getting them sub 7. And that's like, what's that on here? 209. So even that's 10, like, okay, conservatively, at least 5 watts faster at a similar weight.
But the Colnago thing, it's interesting. So if UAE were on Cervelos and he'd done all this on an S5, it would just do so much more for Cervelo than what this is doing for Colnago. Does that make sense? But I suppose we've seen that with Jonas, so it's not really, that's not news as such.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yes. Yeah. I can see that. I mean, yeah, it's kind of a mute point because Colnago is, someone's not sitting here looking through watts and then buying a Colnago. It's a lovely heritage brand. Yeah. So it's kind of a point. It's not a pointless conversation. It's a pointless conversation in terms of buying decisions because that's not a realistic option. But it is interesting to look at how much. He could go. He could go faster. Yeah.
Only other two I think I did want to pick up on, and a lot of people pointed this out to me in the last couple of days, is the sad news that Chris's body language doctor work was correct at Eurobike, and that UnoX are indeed moving to Ridley in 2025. That's genuinely, that was me calling that from that discussion that I had with them, and not a word was said. And the only reason I want to say that is because it was super clear to me that team were very, very sad. Like there was no reason to make something out that wasn't there. And it was so obvious that even some rando like me picked up on this in the discussions, that it was clear that what they were offering that team made them really happy. And that there was we're going to really miss this next year sense about it. So potentially Ridley will step up to the mark. But it's kind of sad when stuff like that happens, because that was clearly a brand that was putting energy into it.
I think both ways. It's quite sad because you had a team that was overperforming for the brand, and then you had a brand that was producing some interesting bikes that, at least from the outside, the team seemed to like and seemed to be actually fairly innovative compared to some of the run-of-the-mill stuff you're seeing from the other brands in the World Tour. So that's, I was pretty sad to see that. Back to, Ridley.
Who are they? Who are they? No, they're not in the World Tour, are they?
I don't think so.
No, they will be. Okay. Good stuff. That was it. Will I talk about the Philipsen thing? Pedersen thing, sorry. I was just that Instagram message.
People saying, because Pedersen said he liked the bike. He's paid by the brand to ride.
People keep tagging us in that Instagram post saying, you don't know what you're talking about, Miller and Cole. I'm like, Mads Pedersen is paid a buttload of money by Trek This is professionalism. This is what you should do as a professional. Support your main sponsor.
It was a cool video.
Yeah, it was good. Good on
like,
him. Fantastic. And he's a great character, and he should say stuff like that. Guys, stop taking your bike advice from professionals paid to ride their bikes. Come on. You can do better than that. But yeah, it was a cool video. Good on him.
Okay, just another bike thing. Dave Arthur reviewed the new Pinarello Dogma, and there's just one phrase he's put in there that I quite like to describe a bike, because you talk about, it's an aero tweaked frame and it really holds its speed well, and you're kind of going, well, how can you feel that? How can you quantify that? It's a bit wishy-washy. I've never liked it, but there is a different phrase he used, which I think I'm going to pull out and start using, and maybe we can start using too, he was riding the Dogma, and he said, it doesn't reward you for going slow. I like that way of phrasing it. And so you could do that different ways. You could say, this bike doesn't reward you to going slow. And so what he meant by that was, it is quite stiff and lively. And so when you speed slows down, you feel a lot of the road vibrations. It's not how the bike wants to be ridden. So on the flip side of that, you could say, the bike rewards you for going fast. That would be the opposite. And you're not saying it's 3 kilometers an hour quicker and hold the speed. It's just, when I'm up at speed, if it's an enjoyable, that's where the bike is in its element. And so I like that phrasing. And then you could also flip it and say, sort of, it punishes you for going slow. You could also say, in the case of, if you've got an endurance bike and you get it up to speed, it punishes you for going fast. The handling isn't quite there. It's not as responsive up at speed, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I liked that phrasing.
I think a TCR is a good example of that. I think it's a bike that's actually is comfortable, gives you good feedback across all sensations, but it doesn't actually excel anywhere. And so, yeah, okay, that's good. I can think about that.
It's because basically putting a sentence on a vibe that you kind of feel, be like, how can I explain this without being too specific that it gets bizarre?
He did utter the phrase, though.
He did utter the phrase. It slipped in.
Slipped in.
Can't help but holding speed.
You're wondering what? I'll put it in right here.
And it holds speed so well.
Thank you, Dave.
You gonna hit me with questions, Chris? How many weeks in? 4 weeks on the Chinese Superbike?
Superbike. Wow. Look at this. Stepping it up. Okay, so 3 weeks in, you've have you left Centennial Park yet?
I went to La Perouse once.
That's right. Okay, so let's just factor in.
Oh, no. I rode at Nelson Bay doing some odd bod loops. Yeah.
Have you been out of the big ring?
Yes.
There was a day.
I rode twice up to Gan Lookout. It's like a 20% gradient.
Really? Okay, fair enough. Okay, so you're a couple of weeks in, so this is a good opportunity maybe to hit you up. Now I'm more interested myself in the group set personally. So I don't know if you want to start there.
Yeah, I'll start.
Okay.
In short, the China bike dream is over. Yeah, it's unfortunately not. It's not working. Okay, it's because of the group set. So this is what happened. So it's the L2 ERX group set, the new version that's coming at some stage, at some point. What happened was, about 2 weeks in, I rode it after it had been raining in Centennial Park. So it wasn't wet, but you get that sandy muck that kind of sprays all over everything. It's disgusting. Got back, and when I was on the right-hand shifter, when I would shift to go into a bigger gear, it was pushing. It wasn't releasing the button straight away. So obviously some sand or something had gotten in there, and so I'd press the shift to a harder gear, and it would slowly sort of come back out. And so, yeah, just some grit or grime had gotten in there. I kind of sprayed it out with a hose and tried to get that out there, and then it went back fine. It was springing back fine the next day. The problem was, since then, I've had an issue where at the start of the ride, maybe once every 5 minutes, I'd press to go to a harder gear at the rear, and nothing would happen. Press again, and then it would shift. And so it was just basically not detecting my shifts. And so it would happen maybe once every 5 minutes, and I'd be like, did that miss shift? I couldn't really tell. And then sometimes throughout a ride it would get worse, and to the point where sometimes maybe 1 in every 10 times I'd press to go to a harder gear at the back, it just wouldn't shift. And so I did a bit of checking. I did a factory reset in the app. It's got an LED on the rear derailleur and inside the shifter, so you can sort of tell where the link in the chain is. And so when it would miss shift, the light on the rear derailleur wasn't illuminating, and also the light on the shifter wasn't illuminating. So it just wasn't detecting I'd pressed the button. And so essentially what's basically happened is, I think probably some grit or something has gotten into the button mechanism and is causing that not detection of a shift. Now, then we went down a bit of a rabbit hole with this. So let me just talk you through like what's going on. So this is the new, when I spoke to Joe Pandapodium and said, I want to do this build, I said, I want to try the L2 ERX. He said, do you want the current version that's been out for a year and a half? Or do you want the new blue version, which is their updated version that's coming at some stage? I said, yeah, frothing it. Yeah, give me the latest, greatest one. Turns out that, then I had this issue and I've been chatting with him, kind of filling him in on how's it going. And he says, that they've already updated to a different button with a new shifter design with a redesigned hood and different button mechanisms, because the buttons as well, they're not that tactile. There's not that much of a click on this new version. He said they've already changed it since then. So then I'm here going, right. So I basically have, this is what I do when I tell a story. My brain goes 1,000 miles an hour. Then he also sent another message saying that the version I got, because he did a video on it saying, L2 ERX, the blue version, the new version. And one of the things you said that L2 should do about 6 months ago when we first talked about this, when they were having all the issues, which is stop, just whatever you've got now, have that as the version. Stop doing random updates no one knows about, and don't release another version until you're happy with it and it's stable, and then go market version 2 and then release it when it's ready. So they've actually listened, because I'm actually writing, this is just a prototype. This version I'm on, this blue version, it has no release date. There's already an update from the one I got, and they've said we're not releasing this until it's stable. And so I've inadvertently basically opted in to be a guinea pig testing this beta version, which I never wanted to do. And so if I could go back in time, I would have just asked for the version that was currently out there and that more people have been riding. Because I think what's happened is, because they've totally redesigned the shifter, you might think, it's an updated version, so it should be more stable. Well, they've totally changed the button design. And so for all I know, they've just introduced this whole other issue, which I've now found. And so the whole thing's quite frustrating, because I can't sit here and be like, it's not a reliable product, I'm unhappy with it. Because to be fair to them, this product doesn't exist. I've chosen to get some prototype version. And now it's looking like I'm probably just going to take the group set off, just the L2 bits. So all the other, the chain rings and the side brake cranks and the cassette and stuff I'll leave. Just the shifters, the derailleurs, and the L2 brakes will be coming off. And I'm probably just going to put Shimano Ultegra on.
What about the brakes?
Yeah.
What about the brakes themselves? Did you have any thoughts on those?
I do. So I'll chat through that in a sec. Just the other thing as well is, then yesterday we're riding, and for the first time in 2 weeks, it didn't miss shift. So now I'm in this awkward position where it clearly wasn't working, and I basically booked in next week when Edwin's back from a race. I said, I'm going to buy the Shimano from Caish. Could you just put it on for me? He said, yeah, of course, I'll put it over for you. Now I'm in an awkward position. We've got this week where it seems to be working again, and now I don't know what to do. Do I give it a second chance?
No.
Or take it off? Yeah.
Having been a beta tester on a group set, there's always good days. And then there are bad days.
Yeah. So I was sort of half tempted to give it another chance, but I'm pretty sure it's just because sand's gotten in there, so they just need to they need to make that less susceptible to grit and dirt. And so, I'm going to...
I mean, I know that you've said that you should have selected the version that's currently out, but I will also say, what are L2 doing giving Jesse Coyle... come on, guys. This was the best opportunity you're going to have to actually put yourself out in a Western market and have your product talked about by someone, actually by two people who really want your product. We both want to do this to Shimano and SRAM, but you just can't.
That's part of why I'm frustrated because why did I get? If I knew this was something that was a work in progress, I would never have got it. I'm not Trace Vell. I'm not gonna be hoking around the thing. I said I'm happy to send the shifter back to L2 if they want to look at it, but no, it's coming. The L2 part of this is over, so that'll be coming off. Ultegra's going on, and then I'll be continuing to test all the rest of the parts.
As disappointing as that is, Jesse, to hear you have that problem, I wouldn't say it's irrelevant, but I'm not surprised. I mean, you're beta testing a group set, so you are always going to potentially have these little blips that will occur. What I'm sort of more interested in is your general feeling on the way the group set performed. If you can remove yourself from this, beta product testing issue that subsequently does seem as though it's been fixed. So how did the actual group set perform?
In 2026, and they finally released this, and we take their word that they fixed all the issues. Well, how is this actual functioning as a group set? The brakes didn't blow me away. So they were They were obviously more consistent than rim brakes. In the wet and the dry, they work the same. You don't notice a difference. The power of them, though, I would say would be in dry conditions was on par with my rim brake.
Yeah, okay.
Carbon wheels, which the braking power was fine, but they weren't. There was definitely no one finger braking going on, two finger braking. It was, about as good as a really good carbon clincher in the dry, which is perfectly fine. But I've got Dura Ace on my gravel bike, which is absolutely clapped out. And so it's a little sticky, but it's more powerful. So the brakes, and this is going to be, if I had to put a sort of a thing on it, it's not like a Shimano replacement for cheap. It's a perfectly acceptable road group set. If the shifter wasn't broken, I would be racing it right now and I'd be still continuing to go on with it. And the brakes would be fine. They'd be fine for me. But I can almost guarantee if you got on them coming over from New SRAM Red and the Dura Ace, you'd be like, oh, these brakes suck. Because even I'm like, they're not that powerful. So that's the brakes. They're okay. They're okay. They weren't actually, and they didn't rub. I wasn't really getting much. I got a bit of rub initially. I re-straightened them, and the rubbing wasn't really an issue. But they're just not. I'm not riding around, braking with one finger. They feel like powerful rim brakes.
My plan was to come here and go really hard at this and be like, why then? Why am I only now sitting here and hearing about this? Because I felt that there was an overwhelming narrative, especially on YouTube, that here's this group set, it's coming, and it is. You put it on, it's pretty much about it's shifting, it's braking. There seems to be there's maybe a little hiccup here and there, but no, you'd be really happy with this. But maybe that's my fault, because when I did go back in and have a look at the Trace Fellow videos, there's been a number of UK vlogger type people that have got these group sets and put them on and said that they're pretty good. There's no point. I'm not going to go and punch down on them to say that their experience wasn't right. I think a lot of it comes back to the fact that the riding that you're actually doing with it is a bit beyond maybe what not testing, the riding that they're doing is. And so they maybe haven't experienced these issues. So
it's just cheap. I think you're always inclined to say, it's good for the money. You're always going to just say it's good for the money. That's probably also coming into it. So it makes you kind of biased because it is cheaper. And I've got it. I've got Dura Ace rotors. I've got the brake pads that come with it. It's all set up. Well, it's just not that powerful. The brakes aren't that powerful. Yeah. So that's the brakes. But then again, what I said when I initially set out is, if they update this and it's more reliable, I'd be happy to ride it again. But you probably wouldn't like it if you're coming. You would.
No.
You should go. I should set it. I could. Yeah. We can't be bothered, but I'd be interested to get you to try.
Edwin will strip and rebuild.
Yeah, strip and
no problem.
Send him.
Thank you, Edwin.
To it. Anyway, so I'll leave that there. But yeah, brakes are okay.
Okay,
fine.
Moving on. Just in terms of the overall performance of
Let me
All
keep
right.
running through. So, front derailleur shifting, very good. Just as good as any of the Shimano bikes I've ridden. No, better actually than my 11-speed Shimano Ultegra that I was on the TCR. Very good. Not just okay for the money, very good front shifting. So that's really good. Rear shifting, okay. Slower than Shimano. So I went back onto the gravel bike again. It's an XTR Di2 rear derailleur with Dura shifters. Both directions, up and down the cassette, the shifting is slower. Down the cassette, it's accurate. It's very good. What it does, though, and I think this might be a pattern issue, is when you're shifting to an easier gear, it overshifts ever so slightly, and then maybe 0.1 seconds later, it comes back under the cog. And so it makes the shift at an okay time, like decent speed. Then there's this microsecond where it makes a bit of noise because it's overshifted, and then it becomes quiet when it shifts back over. And so I can only think that's a pattern issue that they're having to do that because maybe with the angles and stuff, as you said, the parallelogram. If you're coming from Shimano, the shifting is slower, and when you're going to an easier gear, it's not as quiet. It's not as crisp. So again, that is what it is. Again, it's not a Shimano replacement competitor. Was I happy to race it and train it, and I'm committing? Was I happy to just commit to that as my bike for the rest of the year? Yes, shifted fine. But that's what it is. And so, again, yeah, 75% of the way there with the rear shift.
I mean, it's irrelevant to point to me and say you'd hate it coming from because I'm not the person who's ever going to do it, but it's that is it that person looking at a 105 build who's it's still not a rational.
Yes. Well, no, I think 105 would shift better because it's not doing that overshift.
Yes.
Keep in mind, now that overshift is just the rear derailleur. There's nothing you can do about that. It's how they set up to shift. I am not using a Shimano cassette. So perhaps it could be a little faster with a Shimano branded cassette. So I'm putting that out there. This is on how I've got it set up. So that's potentially an issue too. But you're never going to get around that shifting arc of the rear derailleur. The battery life was very good. I was going out and maybe getting 1 or 2% drain if I was lucky. You check the battery in the app. It charges really quick. My Shimano bike takes ages to charge when I plug it in. Yep. It's like a leave it out overnight job. This was getting most of the way charged within about 2 hours.
That's been improved on Shimano 12-speed.
Oh, okay.
Because it's USB-C.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah. That's I'm on mine are all 11 speed. So battery life was very good.
What are the hoods?
Hoods. Okay. The hoods are, again, they're okay. Given all the 12-speed group sets, they are bigger, chunkier at the front, which I don't really like. They're not as rounded. So the actual shape of the lever is a bit squared off. Problem is they've updated that from the one I'm using. So Joe said they've totally redesigned the shifter shape. So I don't know what it's going to be like when it comes out, but the one I've got is a bit more squared off. So it's not as comfortable in the hands as Shimano. The buttons also, they did a weird thing. Joe says the original version clicked when you press the button. For some reason, some people didn't like that. So it's very mushy now. You press the button. Not mushy. It doesn't have it's not tactile. It doesn't really click when you press the button. Apparently with the new buttons on the even newer version, they've gone back to more of a clicky button press. But I'm only talking about the one I've got. There's not really much of a defined click. I really like to feel when I've like click, click when it shifts. Yep. So it's, but again, they're okay. The shifters are okay. No D-fly button on the top. And so, because I'm going back to Shimano, this is interesting. Because I'm going back to Shimano Ultegra, firstly, I will be able to compare all the shifting parts and the brakes maybe in a few weeks. So come back for that if you want that. And that's going to be with the Chinese cassette and chain rings as well. So that'll be a fair comparison. I'm really looking forward to going back to Shimano to get the D-fly buttons back, and because I'm going to get Edwin to put sprint shifters on. And so can't have sprint shifters and there's no D-fly buttons. And so that's also a bit of a downside. So I'm looking forward to getting them back. That's the shifters. And so overall, if I had to put a number on it, compared to Shimano Ultegra. Oh, sorry, the weight. If you're going to talk about the weight. The weight's really good. It's about the same as Ultegra. So if we're going to like look at it all from top to bottom, about 70%. You know, that's what it is. If you're coming from a mechanical grip set to it, or if it's your first bike and you're getting into it, you'll be really happy. You wouldn't even notice because you don't know any better. If you're coming from Dura-Ace DO2 12 speed, you won't.
So if you hadn't had these disappearing shift issues, would you stick it out?
100%. Yep. I was quite happy to commit to it. So what would have been my biggest gripes with the group set overall, and none of these are deal breakers because I was happy to keep riding it. The speed of the rear shifting was average. And so I probably eventually would try with the Shimano cassette, see if that speeds it up. And the brakes are just not that powerful. I was pretty surprised by that. You got a disc brakes, you think, well, I should be really in control here. They are average. And so those two things are
I'd love for you to try this bike once down around those descents with the disc brakes, with those disc brakes.
Well, from what point of view? To see how
to really see, because I mean, I know what you're saying, and that they're manageable. And that's really good. But to me, for me, riding around down there has become vastly safer, like to an extent that I used to actually I would avoid descents because they were just too scary for me, and now I don't even hesitate because of the performance of my brakes.
I can already say, I can already say, I can feel it. They're not confidence inspiring that you want from disc brakes. Yeah, they're better than rim brakes, but yeah, that wouldn't. I can only because I've got Dura-Ace disc brakes on my gravel bike. If you live somewhere really hilly, you're going to want better brakes. Yeah.
Aesthetically, I think it looks cool. I think the rear derailleur looks sharp, looks super cool. It's kind of got a little bit of, what the hell's that, going about it. I mean, that front chainring's sex. That's amazing. That's so cool. I absolutely rate that. But I know we're not talking about that today.
So what? Assuming they fix the issues, where do I see it? Like just with the price difference to 105, I just don't see it as a competitor because it's just not as good of a package. But I'd be very curious to see the OEM pricing because where do I see it wouldn't be in 2025, 2026. Why can't I buy what brand would do it? So I'm thinking it comes directly on a bike because that's what you get off the shelf. If it's $750 USD from from Panda Podium, who's basically a retailer. Imagine what the wholesale price is, and then imagine what the OEM price is. That's when you start to go, yeah, that'd be really cool. Imagine like Canyon come out with their entry level, so you're not having to do mechanical anymore, and undercut your SRAM rival or 105. And if it's your first electronic group set, you'd be really happy with it. That's what I see. I don't see this being chosen by many people over a 105.
My take is I don't think they'll bother with a Western market. I think you're right. I think you'll see it spec'd on OEM Chinese frames, Chinese domestic market. They'll sell buckets through there and at a price point that works. It's a much easier distribution point for them. They don't have to deal with idiots like you and me and the weird intricacies that we have. I just sadly think that's the avenue that it lives in.
I got more chat. This is going to be a long episode, by the way. So can I just keep going? Because I went when I started having these issues, I went on the Weight Weenies forum with the guys talking about it. And they've just shoot themselves in the foot because on AliExpress, when you buy it, firstly, the after-sale support is not very good. At least Panda Podium, you're speaking to someone that speaks comprehensive English. And then also, they sell group sets without batteries. And so half the people on the Weight Weenies forum were having issues, and then they were like, buy these batteries, these specific batteries. So half the issues are because someone's got these shitty batteries that weren't working properly. I'm like it should just be sold. I know shipping is difficult with batteries, but L2 just really haven't helped themselves because I reckon half the issues that people had would have been solved if they had reliable batteries with it. And so that's why it needs to come through either a distributor, but again, then it bumps the price up and it's less competitive, or it's just a shame because it is cheap. Like they could do this so cheap. And then that's why I brought up Canyon, because it's just a shame if it never reaches out of the Chinese market, because it could really bring the price down.
What about if it's specced on a Windspace or a Tavello, and you can buy the whole bike from Windspace or Tavello specced with L2?
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
Mm.
Yes, because if you're bundling the parts together,
then maybe there's support through there as well.
And there's support through there. Yep. I can. It would be a shame if that doesn't happen, because it is perfectly good group set. It's just not Shimano level, and the price, but it's cheaper. So there is a place for this in the market once they fix it. Which a freaking massive company. I'm sure they'll fix it eventually. It just needs more time.
Yeah.
So let me just carry on just with a bit of a review of this bike. I just want to talk about the speed of it, because I've done enough sessions now where I can kind of say, like, is it faster than TCR? Like, what are we looking at? So bunch of efforts.
Some numbers froths.
Numbers we've got. Now, range of conditions, blah, 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 doesn't matter, because I've done a whole heap of them, bundle them together, take the average power and the average speed, and we can compare. So let's look at numbers. TCR at 357 watts, I was averaging 41.7 kilometers an hour around Centennial Park.
What kind of time period? So it's just to give people an idea that you're not just doing that for 2 minutes.
So these were all more than 40-minute efforts. So between 40 minutes and an hour efforts, that was the speed I was getting. So 41.7 kilometers an hour at that 357. Now, I picked 4 of the efforts I've done on the Tavello that were in reasonable conditions, and that were, which is basically all the efforts I've done. Funnily, and I wasn't even really aiming for that power. Average power of those 4 efforts, 356 watts. So that's just related to my training. Yeah. Somehow it's the same power, even though I wasn't really. I probably couldn't have done that if I tried. So what's the average speed of all those accumulated? So it's taken me from 41.7 to now averaging 42.5. So 0.8 kilometers an hour faster at the same power. With multiple efforts, I'm pretty confident in that. Keeping in mind as well, that's actually quite a conservative number, because all the efforts on the TCR are from April, May, where it's a bit warmer. You have lower air pressure. These were all basically all done in July. It's cold in there. It's slow conditions. We're not going to crack some air pressure jokes, but it is slower. Colder air, you move slower. So that's worst. That's sort of conservative.
I totally double down on that. To say that's worst case scenario is an understatement. I think there's almost another kilometre in here.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to run off the numbers I've got.
Yeah, fair enough.
Good. Yeah, we're just putting that out there. So, okay, well, what is that watts-wise? What are we kind of looking at there? So, at the drag, the aero drag, the CDA of the TCR, for me to get that power increase, so for me to get that speed increase to go up to 42.5, it's approximately a 20-watt faster setup than the TCR. And so my 357 watts would have to be about 376 to be my Tavello speed. So that's a lot faster. Like there's no way around that. That is a huge increase. I mean,
fucking terrifying. That's what that is. Right.
Because if you then go, at 357, if I get 20 watts faster, I'm then doing 377 and I'm 20 watts faster from the bike. And then, then I'm sort of, coil on a TCR at 360 versus coil on a Tavello at 380 is kind of like coil on a TCR at 395. That is some dodgy maths, but you can kind of see just from, and that's probably a fitness level I'm never going to get to training at this volume. So I'm literally just buying speed.
Just think back when you were doing that nationals prep, you would have had an extra 15 watts.
Not on.
Well.
Okay. Yes. Well, on the nationals course. I'm in the draft.
Yes.
The whole time.
Okay.
So now keep in mind a couple of things. That is around Centennial Park, which is basically very smooth surface. So that's in the conditions that would not even benefit from the wider tires. So get that up to a higher speed on a rougher country road, and that speed, that watt saving is going to be even more as the road surface gets rougher. So there's that also to consider too. And keeping in mind the weight of between the two bikes, it's only about 300 grams heavier.
That still surprises me. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So not that much heavier. It's going to be faster on rougher roads, and it's 20 watts faster around Centennial Park. I mean, that's no brainer. But how do I like explaining how am I saving 20 watts? Keeping in mind it's the whole package and my position too. So I reckon the frame is probably 10 watts of that. I don't know. Sorry. Let me redo that. So how is it 20 watts faster as a package? Just if people are curious, because I've changed a lot of stuff on it. I think the tubing of the frame is about 12 watts of that 20 watts based on Tour Magazine's, the saving from a TCR to a sort of an SL8, SL7 level aero bike. So it's probably 12 watts of that's just the frame. The wheels going from 50 mil to 65, 75s, probably 6 watts. Narrower handlebars, brings the frontal area in. Now, I was already on 38s on the TCR, gone to 36s, so probably maybe 5 watts. Then the last little bit, because I'm on shorter cranks, I feel like I'm more stable in my upper body when I'm doing the efforts. There's probably a little bit less side to side. At least I feel that because I'm not as cramped up at the top of the pedal stroke. So maybe there's 2-3 watts just in being a little bit more stable as well. And so, yeah, that's sort of how I'm justifying getting to about 20 watts. Most of it is the frame and the wheels.
Can I ask the catalogue of numbers that you have on the TCR? Is that at a reasonably similar weight? Your own weight, I mean.
Yes, I have. I've been 83 kilos since
during that
the end of
period.
the
So we're not talking about a time when you were lighter putting out those watts in Centennial Park. Okay.
And so the fastest one of me on the TCR was 42.2. So the best one I ever did on the TCR, and that was me when I was in the Nero suit, focusing on my aero position more, because this is riding in regular position. I'm not like tucked in trying to go fast.
That, yeah.
So 42.2 was the best I ever got in one of these efforts, and I'm averaging 42.5. I haven't had a single effort on the Tavello slower than that. So the slowest one I did on the Tavello was 42.2.
Yeah. What's the fastest you've done?
42.7. So they're pretty tightly bundled together. So yeah, it's
fast bike.
Happy with that.
Yeah. And that's in the range of what we suspected, a little bit above it potentially.
Yeah, I thought about 1 kilometer an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was what I thought. That's what you kind of, when you look at tour magazines, you go from TCR to an aero bike.
No, that is pretty well. That's bloody good feedback. Obviously, what I really want to know now is a bit more subjective riding stuff. When hopefully we drag you out of Centennial Park, to get some. Is it a plank of wood type feedback on it? Because that's always the criticism of these bikes, that they don't really have any charisma when it comes to actually riding on rougher roads. But we'll see.
So I'll keep at it, testing it. And then the other part to test because I'll have the Ultegra coming on, so I'll be able to do a bit of a comparison with that too. So yeah, there's plenty more to come on the China bike, but I'm fortunate with the group. I really wanted it to work. That's quite unfortunate with the group set coming off, but the rest of the bike's still saying the same. Still the Chinese cranks, still the Chinese chain rings, cassette. It's not the 50-minute club anymore. It's probably like the hour and a half club.
I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know what you want to say.
Well, it's just so you got the invite. Invite to join a UCI Continental team.
I don't know how much I can say on this
in 2025. No, we don't have to go to details. We can skirt around the edges. So it was a legitimate offer of Chris, and then also extended out to me. We got there's 2 seats for you 2025. Should we get back to UCI racing next year? Would you join a Conti team? Would you do it?
No.
Oh.
No, I wouldn't do it, but I would.
Okay.
I wouldn't join a Conti team, but what I would do is guest ride. Yes, I would definitely.
Okay. Well, why wouldn't you just join?
Because that's embarrassing, basically.
Oh, that's
no. There's a whole other. Well, no, like that's not a joke. Like that's. I would definitely feel like I'm taking the place of someone who's actually got a future in the sport, and that's not my place to do. Whereas I
fair enough.
Okay, so my mindset would be that I think there's kind of a cool bit of value we could add to this team that would help them along the way. And from boil it down to just a purely selfish perspective, there's a few things that were left undone because of COVID and disastrous events at the end of our time that remain undone. And I think there is a little sniff still there that would still be trickling away.
Okay.
Yourself?
Ooh.
Because let me just say,
Okay.
because the part that I would actually miss, or the part that has me thinking, this could be fun, is not actually the elite performance aspect of it. It's that it's day 3, you're in this little team, the kind of chats and stories that happen in that moment are the kind of things that I look back on now. And again, it's an experience that you don't get from doing a Fondo or doing a mass participation event or a masters event. It's kind of unique to being in a team, in an environment that is incredibly unique and challenging. And so that to me is the pull, I suppose.
I just think I'd be so useless in a UCI race. Like
There
in the
is that.
bunch, getting in the break, you'd have to go, and they're just so dangerous. I just don't think I honestly don't think I'd be any use because I'd just be at the back, and then maybe I'd just sort of could probably get into it just like from right at the back to the front. I could probably manage to get into a break, but I'm not going to be any good doing a lead out.
Oh God,
It's just truly terrifying, especially at that lower level of like Asian or European kind of 0.2, 0.1s. They're just horrible. So I would really feel like I'm wasting someone's spot. But would we have chat? So could the show be better if Chris or Jesse join a Conti team? Do you reckon there'd be discussion, there'd be stuff to talk about coming out of it?
No.
It's all kind of bubble
It's very
chat.
niche chat.
I don't think it would really help the show.
No. I think, as I said, as a one-off, there'd be a little bit of buzz and hype about it that people might tune in to see what disastrous has occurred. But if there was a routine like, Jesse's going to Langkawi next week, like give us some thoughts on your training. Who gives a shit?
Yeah. No, I don't think that'll work. Would it?
Less.
Yeah. All right. So you guessed. What about team bike? Would you be excited to get on a team bike, team kit?
Team kit.
What do you reckon?
Full Asian spec. Get me on wheel top.
Oh no.
With a Pardis or something.
Oh yeah.
100%. I'm not taking my own bike to that. I have seen enough when it comes to those bike races
that's
to
fair,
know that that is not somewhere I want to be taking my own hard-earned. Any stretch of the imagination. A nice little Tavello. That could do me very nicely over there. I think. Yourself? You're already on a Conti team bike.
I'd hate. No, that's it. Well, there's no Conti teams on a Tavello. No, team bike. Nah, you don't have any. I hate not having choice. That's a problem.
Oh, okay.
You have to toe the line. No. Doing a all right. Chris Miller. Winding back the clock in 2025, I reckon.
Do you think I could hang on what could I do in a 2.2 stage race finish?
You've already done one. You already have finished.
Yeah. But is that...
You're fitter. You're just as fit as you were in 2018, 2019.
I suppose I could just finish. That'd be a story, wouldn't it?
I mean, not to be rude, but like the bottom kind of 2 or 3 riders in most of the Conti teams aren't amazing riders. They'd just be
sniff around.
Yeah, they're just sort of getting
a bottle.
around. Yeah. Like that's all right.
I'm actually not very good at that either. Quietly.
No, there's kind of some niche skills which you're maybe not quite versed in.
Yeah, I could be irrelevant and get to the end.
I think it'd be funny. I'd love to. I'm just waiting for the Instagram post. Chris Miller in a Conti team kit. Just
Like 12-year-olds.
And everyone just, and you and then all these 19-year-olds. That'd be
you coming
great.
along if we're doing it. It's not a solo job. All right, JC, that is us done for this week. We will see you and everyone else next week.